Thanks, Anne. So, hi everyone. It's the 24th of April. We're here for another Blackboard workshop. My name is Lloyd Stock. I'm based in a small market town in England called Bury St Edmunds, and I'm delighted to be standing in for Sarah Hallam today, who's coming back from a user conference in Durham. So, thank you for having me. I understand you're in the transition, the modernization to the new experience in Blackboard. And what I want to do today is look at some of the remaining topics that haven't yet been addressed as part of your faculty training. So as we go through the session, please feel free to stop and ask any questions. We are recording the session, so that means that any questions that you ask will be really useful for other faculty who may not have thought about those questions or may be thinking about them and are interested in the answers but couldn't make today's session. So yeah, feel free to come on mic and if there's anything in chat that I'm missing, just feel free to interrupt. Um, I think what's left in terms of your training, for the most part anyway, are these four areas here, Gradebook, rubrics, and then other assessment related topics, assignments, discussions, and tests, all of which, as you know, can be graded. And there's a whole new workflow about in terms of grading that applies to the modernized experience in Ultra. And then there's the topic around question banks, and that's a separate a separate topic in itself. I think given the time we've got today, it's best cognitively, and it's best given the constraints on time to focus primarily on the two top topics, which were gradebook and rubrics, and then Sarah will cover off the remaining topics that we don't get to in today's session in the May 1st session, which is next Friday. We'll see how we go. But these topics are very contingent with one another, gradebook and rubric, so it makes sense to cover them together. And what I'm going to do, and you can chime in just a moment to tell me whether you think this is appropriate. I'm going to start off by thinking about, I'm going to assume that you've got some prior experience with Blackboard. You'll be taking receipt of a converted course from original to ultra, and there's going to be some QA that needs to be done to make sure that the course is converted correctly. Um, there's a need, obviously, for orientation. That we need you to be comfortable with the new experience and the new workflows, and we want to make sure that it's ready for students. So we need to check things like, is it organized correctly? Are the settings configured correctly? Are our categories, did they come across okay? And if not, how do we recreate them? What's this thing about the overall grade in Ultra? What's that? How does that differ from original? How do we configure that? How do we set it up? And then also, really importantly, some of you are using weighted columns in your courses. Those sometimes come over, but sometimes don't. And even if they do, it's best to check the math on it, make sure it's adding up correctly, make sure all the weightings, if you're using weightings, are sort of proportionally mapping out across the different columns that you've got in the grade book. So we'll want to look at those and review those. And once you've done that, from a gradebook perspective, your course is very close to being ready. There's obviously the content that needs to be checked and what have you. But in terms of taking receipt of your original course and doing the QA on the gradebook, those are some critical steps. The remaining steps would really be to do with rubrics, because if you're using rubrics in your original course, they will come across as well. But we need to make sure that the criteria has come across correctly, that the weightings are or points are properly apportioned, just good QA, the kind of stuff that you would do as a matter of the normal life cycle of a course, but we perhaps need to do it even more pertinently with the migration to the modernization to Ultra than before. And if we have time at the end of today's session, I'll show you how you can use the design assistant for inspiration for creating new rubrics. In case you have the time, I know many of you won't, but if you have the time as part of this transition to make use of some of the new capabilities in Ultra, it means that you're bringing your old course across and enhancing it before releasing it back into back with your students. So that's kind of where I want to go today. Does that sound about right with anyone? Are there any other topics that I haven't listed there that you would that you kind of expected me to cover today in these two topics? Let me know if you've got any particular. Yeah, Leanne. Sorry, I thought you came off.
Anything. It looks fine to me.
That's
You're,
fine too. Sorry, you came off mic, so I
oh, I'm
didn't know whether
sorry.
you. No, 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 you're fine. No, you're absolutely fine. I saw you come off mic and thought, oh, Leanne's got something to chime in with. No, that's great. I'm not overly familiar with Zoom, but I'm just looking at all the other panels here. I think I can get up participant list. There we go. So you can use all the Zoom features. I'll try and stay abreast of what's going on in Zoom as we go forward.
I think this looks good, Lloyd.
Great. Okay, good. Let's jump into Blackboard then. So, do you see my music composition course?
Yes.
You do. That's great. Okay. So, this is I'm a pianist, and what I like to do to relax. And so, this is my music composition course, which uh, will help us to illustrate these sorts of checks that we need to perform on the gradebook when we come into the course. Now, remember that there are some gradebook capabilities available to you from base navigation. This is the course page that you'll be very familiar with. And if we go to grades, or it might be marks, depending on your environment, um, the base nav functionalities here will summarize what needs our attention and gives us an opportunity to see the overall grade. So there are some capabilities in terms of grades from BaseNav, but let's go into the gradebook inside of our course to take a closer look at the gradebook there. So the first thing is to get oriented with the gradebook in Ultra. When you click on Gradebook, the first page it might land on is the Overview tab. There are four tabs you can see here: Overview, Items, Grades, and Students. The Overview tab is where you're going to see some a summary of information that needs your attention. So this is basically like the old needs attention in the original. This is bringing your attention to those items. Items is a new mobile first friendly view. Um, if you were to reduce this down to like a 4-inch screen like this, you can see that um, even from this view, you can get a sense of what action you need to take. In this case, we're up to speed. It's all complete. I've got two students who haven't submitted yet. So even from a high level perspective, this is quite useful, especially if you're accessing Blackboard on a mobile device. But those of us that are used to Blackboard Original, we might be more familiar with this view of the gradebook. It's like the spreadsheet view, if you like. You've got the rows of students and the columns of gradable items. The students view will summarize at a high level all the students in the course and give you a sense of when they were last in the course. So in terms of monitoring students, that's kind of your first port of call. When have they been in the course yet? And if not, you can take action right from here. You can message that student and encourage them to get engaged with the course. For the most part today, we'll be sticking with this view of the gradebook. But before we do that, I want to go to the gradable items view and talk about column organization. So in the original experience, you go into a sub menu in order to organize columns. But in Ultra, we organize columns simply by, just close this a little bit, simply by dragging and drop. So if I scroll down here, I can see that I've got a Module 3 diagnostic um, assessment, and that really should be here in the Module 3 area. And so this is how you organize columns or items in this case in Ultra. You simply click on the double-headed arrows on the right-hand side of the item. You drag up with your mouse. And what you want to do is wait for some space between the two items where you want to drop this. So you can see if I hover between module 2 and module 3, it takes about a second, then a space appears underneath my mouse, and I can drop the item in there. I want this actually between module 3 quiz and module 4. I'm gonna let go of my mouse now, and there we go. So that's column organization in Ultra. It's just drag and drop. It's the same when you're on the content page. You pick up an item and you can drag it around. So it's more intuitive. If you want to use your keyboard, if you just tap with your mouse on the item that you want to move and then press the tab key on your keyboard, that puts a little blue halo around the move item icon, and then you can press the space bar, and then the halo grows to enclose the whole item. And then, how do you suppose I move this around using my keyboard? Any guesses?
The arrow key.
Arrow key. Yeah, excellent. So click down to go down, and then up to go up. And so I can move this item around, and then when I'm happy that it's organized correctly, I can press the space bar again, and that drops the column back in view. So just to repeat what I did there, click on the item that you want to move, just literally tap with your mouse, then press the tab key, and that halo appears around the move icon. You press space bar, and then like Anne said, use the arrow keys to move it up and down. When you've got a lot of columns in the gradebook, the keyboard accessibility is really handy. And obviously, if someone is only partially sighted, then they will be able to use the keyboard as well as a more accessible way of organizing the columns. Okay, so column organization. Let me just go back to my list. Yeah, organization settings. The next thing you're going to want to do is take a look at the red items in the core in the grade book. So we've got a red item here, and this is just showing red because there are two missing. So I'm not concerned about that. This is one missing. This is one missing. I'm not concerned about that. But if there are red items that whose due dates are incorrect, then obviously you need to know how to update the due dates. Now, you could go back to the content tab and manually go into the items. You could bring up each item in turn and change the due date. But does anyone know how to do bulk edits of gradebook items with due dates? Anyone experiment with that yet? No? Okay. Let me show you how you do that. And you do that actually not from the gradebook, you do it from here within the course content page. Tap on the More Options button. Just bear with me a second. You have to bear with me. I have an extension plumbed into Blackboard showing you things which you don't need to see. Just ignore ignore those little prompts. So when you click on the three dots, you'll see this menu here. And one of the items is Batch Edit. Bringing that up allows us to access all the items in our course and make three types of bulk edits. One is edit dates. That's the one that we want. One is edit visibility. That's really good if you're trying to do significant changes to item visibility. And the third one is delete, a bulk delete function. And so what I can do is I can expand each of these learning modules. I can tap the item that I want to change the due dates on, Maybe I want those two from module one and then module two, tap that to expand it, and then module two. So maybe I want these three items and I want to edit the dates. And there's three different types of edits you can make here on the dates and time. The first one is actually specifying the date and time that you want. The more likely option you're going to go for is change the dates by a number of days, moving it forward or moving it backward, probably forward, by a number of days. That way, instead of choosing a specific date and having everything line up on the same day, which is probably not what you want a sequence of assessments spread out over your course period. This way, um, you're shifting them all in sequence forward by the same amount, and they'll all land in the same sequence as they did in the previous cohort. You also can change dates based on course start date as well. So you've got a wide range of options here for making significant amounts of edits on the due dates without having to do it one by one by one by one. Okay, so that's bulk edit on due dates. And when you are in receipt of your original course and you see all these red items, the first reason that is because of missing submissions, which you don't need to worry about. But the most likely the most likely reason is because of due date misalignment. It's for reflecting the due dates from the previous cohort, and we need to shift those forward using the bulk edit function that I've just shown you. Okay, so column organization, item due date settings, and then we want to go and look at some of the broader settings that are available in the Ultra Gradebook. Now, in Ultra, whenever we want to configure settings, um, we are always looking for this little gear icon. That's a common. You've got it up here in the core settings button. You've also got it here in the Gradebook settings button. So if there's something you can't find on this page and it's not at the item level, like edit, delete, or in the case of a assignment, things like statistics and results. If it's to do with the overall tool and you're looking for extra settings, it's going to be behind one of these little gear icons. We tap that and we've got a bunch of stuff going on. Now, don't worry so much about student performance. We can come back and talk about that a little bit later. But we do want to check our schemas. Check that our schemas are properly converted and make sure that those are come across. We also want to check our gradebook categories and make sure that those are correct as well. And later on, we'll talk a little bit about rubrics. Okay, so let's start with schemas. So I've got one schema in this course. It's a letter schema, and it's broken out by quite a number of different levels, ranging from obviously the bottom of the notation of F from 0% all the way up to 100%, which is A plus. You need to make sure that those are correct. And if they're not correct, you can go in using the options button and make adjustments to the ranges and make adjustments to the letters or the numbers, whatever notation you're using. So tapping edit opens up that range and allows us to change this, to whatever notation we're using. It might be complete, incomplete. It might be letters, numbers. In my case, it's A plus for the top end of this particular schema. Excuse me. So that's the first thing you want to check. Make sure that schemas have come across correctly. I'm going to discard changes and go back to the settings by tapping the little cross icon. The next thing we're going to want to check is the categories in the gradebook. These should have all come across. There shouldn't be any issue with this. There are the standard categories that come with Blackboard. You can't make adjustments to these. They're fixed in the system, but you can add your own categories. And if any categories haven't come across for any reason, you can add new category, and then you simply type the name of the category and press enter on your keyboard. And then that gets stored in the system. Oh, I've spelled that. I haven't put a. So I can actually go back. I can tap the three dots, click edit, and correct that. Ooh, and press enter again. Just pressing enter, that submits the change, and that is now saved in the gradebook settings. These categories are obviously really important when you're doing calculations and when you're doing weighted calculations. So make sure that those are all in place. Before we look at weighted calculations, we want to make sure that our categories have come across correctly. Okay, we'll come back to rubrics a little bit later if we have time. For now, let's go back to the overall gradebook. So let's talk a little bit about the overall grade. In original, you typically have in your course template a total column that adds all of the columns up in the gradebook without any prejudice, without any weighting, without any significant math going on. And for that reason, you will have often created weighted columns that allow you to segment the data just like you would in Excel, looking at certain columns and not looking at others and all the rest of it. We'll come to weighted totals in a moment, but let's talk about the overall grade first of all. This is a new concept in, well, it's not new, but it's implemented in a slightly different way in Ultra. And what this is basically a total calculation. If I just click on the overall grade here, and if you don't have it in your course, if you scroll down to the bottom of items, it will say, would you like to create the overall column, the overall grade? And so you can do that. If we click on that, and we click calculation details, so notice Ultra doesn't segment these two things off superficially. Sometimes in your original experience, although if you're used to original, we'd hardly notice this. Things are in things are sort of separated from one another in a way that creates friction. It makes it more difficult for you to get from A to B. But in Ultra, things not always, it's not perfect, but things generally speaking are it's easier to get from one place to another because we are anticipating where it's useful to locate things together. And so you can always get back to the grades view, which shows you a live preview of where students are at in this course. You can see that in this course that I've got a preview user, and I'll explain why that's there in a little while. But here on this page, we're looking at the calculation details. There are three different types of calculation. The most advanced one allows you to perform your own math. Your own math. So, for example, I could say I would like to take a value, and I can put in here maybe a value of 10, and then I want to add to that a variable, and I'm going to select from the variable drop down one of the columns inside of my course. So let's take one of the quizzes, for example, and then I could add to that another value, if I want to, I could divide. Let's divide. So we want to divide that by another value, which is an arbitrary value that I'm coming up that might be based on the syllabus or something like that. An arbitrary value of divided by 2, for example. And so this isn't a very good example of how to use the overall grade, but what I'm showing you here is how you can use this math tool here to draw from the gradebook existing data, which are your assessment columns, and then use the functions and variables available within the tool to come up with your own calculation. And in most cases, it will be adding far more columns than this. Now, I'm not going to spend any more time on this. If you want to perform these kind of calculations, I would suggest you experiment with this. It's not rocket science. Experiment with it, and if you have any questions, we could always address those in a follow-up session. What we do want to focus on are these two types of calculation, points and weighted. And I'll come to weighted in a moment, but let's think about points first of all. So points is going to add up all the items in your course and all their point values and come out with a overall total. And that then, using the schema, gets mapped in this course to a letter notation. So what this is doing is taking all of the columns. If we expand just one of these categories, we can see the columns in that category. We can do the same for this category, and so on and so forth. In actual fact, in this course, I've got 4 items that are categorized as a test, 3 as an assignment, 2 as a quiz, and that's it. There are no other items in this course that are categorized in any other way. But what you'll notice that I've done here inside of this overall grade calculation is I have 2 different colors going on here. If you're a sighted user, you'll be able to see that the Module 3 diagnostic has a purple sort of no entry sign. And what that means is that that particular test has been excluded from the points. If I click that icon again, suddenly our points goes up from 83 to 111 because this item has a value of 28. So in essence, what we're doing with the points calculation is we're adding up all the point values of all the items in our course, and using that as the total grade for the course, and that is then mapped to our schema, which in this case is a letter. To exclude items, you do what you've just seen me do in reverse. You tap the sort of no entry sign, and that excludes the item. You can do this for every category that's in this that's in your gradebook. Or if you want to unlink an item from its category to give that particular item a different weighting, which we'll come to in just a moment, you can also do that. So you can unlink an item, and then if we wanted to, we could now remove all of the other items from test, but still draw the value of the Module 3 diagnostic into our overall grade. So by unlinking items in the points calculation type, you are able to segment the data away from categories. If categories in this case are too broad, they're too generic, a mechanism for you to calculate your overall grade. And this ultimately gives us our overall grade. If I click save on that, the save button disappears. We tap on grades, and we can now see that the schema is applying its measurements to the new grade for that student. So that's the points calculation type, and that allows you to simply, it's a far simpler method really than weighted. Simply derive a value for the total grade based on the individual points of each assessment within the course. Okay, so to step back a few steps, when you are in receipt of your course, from original to ultra, the converted course, if you want to use the overall grade in order to establish a total column, then you can absolutely use it. Just let me go back and remind you how you do that. So you're going to scroll to the bottom of this page, and you'll see a prompt that says create the overall grade. You can tap that, and that will create you a new overall grade. Now, some of you, you won't need that because you've already got a total column that will have come across from your original course, and that serves the purpose of the overall grade without having to create a new column. So don't feel like you have to use that feature. It's not going to affect your student information integration. That's abstracted away from this. We can choose whichever column we like from the gradebook for that. But if you want to use that new feature with some of its new capabilities, then you can use the overall grade.
Lloyd, we
Okay.
have a question in the chat
Yes.
box.
Let me get that up. Thank you, Anne. How would you include items to make the total over 100 so that students can use alternate assignments? Um, Can you?
So to clarify,
Yeah,
the
please.
yeah, so the so in the old grade book I could total items above 100 and still, so if I have a student that wants to do one project over another, and they could still, that project would count towards their 100 and or extra credit. But in this new overall scheme, you can't go over 100. It limits you to 100.
100% or
Yeah,
100
100%.
points?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Either points or
Okay.
percent, it limits you. If I try to go, it won't let me put a grade that's, let's say I want a grade that's 105 with 5 points being extra credits, so that it could
Mm,
apply anywhere in the grade schema. So like somebody might have a 95, and with those extra credits, it would still turn 100, but I can't add those in the actual grade book, in the
yeah.
totals, because it won't let me add an item. So if it goes over 100, it blocks me from adding those items. It has to total 100.
That's interesting. I know in the weighted um, the weighted calculation type,
Hmm.
this is obviously always going to come out at 100%.
Right.
And you can change the calculation rules so that for example, it will drop scores and it will use only the lowest and high. So there are some adjustments you can make to the calculation at that level. Um, but I'm not familiar with that specific use case, so um, we might need to have a look at that, uh, Elmer. We could potentially look at it now if you want, in case there's a solution we can arrive at here, or
We can
um,
look at afterwards so it doesn't hold up everybody, because I use it all the time. So I was just wanting to try to figure out,
yeah,
because I noticed it blocks me. I wanted to like have two assignments, so somebody could use one of the assignments instead of both. So
yeah,
they could do like, okay, you're going to do the like a marketing plan, and you're going to do a marketing presentation, and they both are weighted the same. And then the student can do either or, and then the total for their grade would still be 100, but, or,
yeah,
in that scheme, but one of the items won't count all the time. But it doesn't let me, if I go, I would have to do that. I'd have to go over 100. It's like, by 10
yeah,
points, it would be like 110 total, because then that 10 points is like variable in the grade. But yeah, um,
yeah.
we can do that
I,
another
I,
time.
yeah, I think probably what you'd need to do is you'd need to unlink the item from the category. Have you experimented with that? Because anything that's in the category is obviously forced. The weighting is forced across the category. You can change the proportions, but you can't make change proportions on items within a category
Right.
independently unless you unlink them. So I think if you've got those two items and you want either or, and you want to give students the flexibility to choose one or the
Hmm.
other, by unlinking them, but giving them the same proportion of weighting outside of the category, you should be able then to have that sort of flexibility.
Okay, I'll try playing with that a little bit and see.
Yeah.
Because I know I kept trying to play with the weighting and trying to see if I could get, but it still didn't let me go over 100 points, because one item might have been over, and then I had like, I have like extra point assignments that people can do for extra credit, and then I can't count it as extra credit, so I haven't figured out how to do that, because
Okay.
it
I
it,
think
it
that's,
stops you at 100. So.
yeah, no, sure, it will stop you at 100%. But you should be able to unlink the item from its category. So you
Hmm.
tap the unlink icon here.
Okay.
Um, and then you've got flexibility over how you apportion the items weighting to the total.
Yeah, that I can do, but it still has a total of 100, even if I do that. I tried that one, but it
Okay.
still forces me to be like, it won't let me save the schema until I actually make it to be 100. So it has to total 100, or else it doesn't. I
Yeah.
can't save it. So
Let me take that one
you can
away,
play with it.
Alma,
Yeah. Okay.
and I'll have a think about it. Yeah.
Thank you.
And we have
Good stuff.
more comments in the chat for
Yeah, I
you.
see that. I think they're probably tied to the same use case. It's about extra credit and finding ways of having them added in, but not part of the total points. So let me circle back to that use case if we have time at the end. And if not, I can provide some best practice guidance after the session. Just going to put these back in and leave that back. Yeah, there we go. Let me just save this before we move on. No, let's leave it in points. Okay. So that's a new way of working with the sort of total column in Ultra. Let's talk now a little bit about weighted calculations. So again, these should come across from original. Elma's highlighted some potential differences in the way that the percentages are worked out that we can address some of the time. But let me talk to you a little bit about how you create these columns yourself in Ultra, in case you're wanting to sort of start from the ground up or add in other calculations at a later date. So in Ultra, there's actually two ways you can do this depending on which view of the gradebook you're looking at. In the items view, because items are presented horizontally, you can create a new item any way you like, just simply by hovering your mouse in between the items where you would like to place the new item. And you see this plus symbol appear, and when you tap that, you have these different options. In the spreadsheet view, the grades view, items are presented vertically. No, I think maybe I had that the wrong way around. They're presented vertically actually in this view and horizontally in this view. And when you hover your mouse between the columns in this view, you get the same feature. So it's different orientations, but it's the same basic capability. Either way, you can add in these new columns. I've actually got one in here already, and you can see that it's deriving a different value because it's apportioning column weightings differently to the overall grade, which you would typically expect. And if we go into the item by tapping Edit, we can see how this is configured. So first of all, the calculation type is weighted. I've got proportional weighting on. And if we expand the items, we can expand the categories, we can see that this module 3 diagnostic has not been included. So that doesn't have any weighting. The overall weighting for these categories to arrive at the overall, what have I done there? Sorry. Just bear with. Let me just cancel that. You can always cancel. I wanted it proportionally weighed out. So the three categories that we are working with in this course are given a percentage based on the overall points within the course, minus this one, which actually has a higher value. I think it's 28 points from memory. And it, like Alma says, it always has to equivalent to 100%. And you have these options for unlocking the value in case you want to change that. So maybe the test actually is only going to work out at 5%. And when you do that, it's going to find other ways of achieving 100%. In this case, it's picking out two new categories that have been created, but I don't want to include those either. So I'm going to exclude those. And now it's telling me that I've got a problem in the calculation, which I need to manually rectify. So I need to go back and open this item here, for example, and add in the correct value. So although Ultra isn't doing all the math for you, it is helping you to identify when you've got a mathematical problem before you click save, or indeed allowing you to click save when actually there is a problem in your calculation. So you can unlock these values to deviate away from the equal or proportional weighting that's put there by default. think this was 1.2. No, 1.1. Oops, 1.1. 1, 2. There we go. Ah, yeah, that's the joys of doing a live demo in any software. Let me just refresh my page. Okay. So you can unlock these items in order to change the proportional weighting of the categories. You can tap this icon to eliminate the category, or you can do that as we saw earlier. You can do that at the individual level. Let's put this back at 11.12 again. And then at the individual item level, you can exclude items or you can unlink items if you want to weight them differently. So let's say, for example, this test here, you wanted to weight that not against a proportional weighting of 11.12 for the test category, but you wanted to give it an inordinately high weighting of, let's say, of 5%. Now, at this point, Ultra now tells you that you've got a problem in your calculation, and so you'd need to find that 5% from someplace else within the overall calculation. Inside of these categories, not inside of the items, but the categories, I did briefly show this just a moment ago. You can set conditions for elements within this category to allow for things like drop scores. So you could drop X amount of the lowest scores, drop X amount of the highest scores. If you want that kind of math applied, then you can make those rules here. You can also just choose the highest scores or the lowest scores within any given category. But these are category rules only because it's only within a category that you typically have more than one item. And if you have only one item in a category, you obviously can't apply these rules because there's no way of, we're not working with scores, we're working with a score, singular. So only when you've got a plural of items within a category can you adjust the items in this way. Yeah. Okay. Just looking at chat. So those rules are available in categories where there is more than one grade. I'm going to leave that off. So when you are in receipt of your calls, make sure that any weighted columns that have come across are operating how you need them to operate. And we'll have to come back to these questions of extra credit when we can actually look at those courses. I think once I see the course and can get my head around the math that's going on, I think we'll probably be able to make some progress in that. So if we've got time at the end, we'll take a look at that a little bit later. Any questions um, on the way that you portion weightings, the way that you link, unlink items, exclude, include items? Any questions on that? No? Okay. Good. Let's close that then, and we'll close that without saving. So you can create as many of these as you like. You might want to create a weighted total for assignments, for tests. Just get a sense of um, where our students' strengths are. That's all good course design practice, and that's not what we're here for. But all of those types of columns can be created. You can also create a total calculation, and that's gonna allow you to without waiting, without actually apportioning weightings, you can simply just create a points-based calculation that is derived in this course based on a total points value of 121. So depending on whether you want weighting or whether you want points, you can choose the correct option from this drop down here inside of the grade book. Okay. You can also add items. This will just be a cell in which you can add a value. So again, those should come across from original. Shouldn't be any issue with that. But if you need to do any extra engineering afterwards, you can add those items. This might be, some sort of segmentation data that you might have in your gradebook to create different pathways, adaptive pathways for students. And you can see that you can choose letter, points, percentage, complete, incomplete. You've got all those typical schemas in there in order to properly record the particular data that you want to record in that column. And then obviously you can use that data in that column for things like release conditions and other creative instructional design use cases, as well as math within the gradebook. But remember, because you have the ability to use the math editor with its variables and values, you don't have to create an arbitrary item in the gradebook for those types of math calculations. That can be done inside of the math editor that we showed you earlier. Yes, Anne.
Can you explain the difference between the overall grade that was identified in the calculation details that you showed and the total calculation? What's the difference
Sure.
between those two categories?
The main difference, and this is a really good point in which to introduce a student, is to talk about the student experience where this is concerned. So obviously, from a student perspective, they can see, if we go into the grade book for the student preview, they can see all of their gradebook items here in their own personal view of the gradebook. They've got, module one assignment, module one. And if you've got any total calculations and weighted calculations that you're making visible to the students, they will be shown here as well. What the overall grade does um, is both on the base navigation, but also here in the gradebook. It presents that value very prominently in the top of the gradebook for the students to be able to see. And if I tap on that, it will explain how that overall grade is arrived at. So I can see the math behind it. I can get a sense of where where the lion's share of value is in this course in terms of points. You may consider that to be a good thing or a bad thing based on the student experience, but that's what we're showing. We're showing the student the math behind the calculation. So that's the difference. The columns in the gradebook that are not the overall grade, the calculation columns, they will show in this view here, whereas the overall grade shows quite prominently both in base nav and here in the gradebook on the top right hand corner.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yep.
So let's drop back into the instructor view. We've talked a little bit about creating calculated columns and item columns. Let's get back to the grades view. Let's talk a little bit now about monitoring and retaining students. Now, I've already mentioned that you have this view here that allows you to see when students last access the course, their overall grade, and you've got the ability from here to message the student. Also, if you go down at the user level by coming through to the Students tab and then tapping on the student user that you'd like to investigate, you've got additional data here, enough data to keep you happy for a long, long time about not only the individual students' activity, but how they're performing against the overall course. So this is really useful data to be able to take action of the back of. And because of that, you've got the send message feature here as well, enabling you to take action right within this view. You can see here, if you're using progress tracking in your new Ultra course, you can see how the student is interacting with content, what they've completed, what they've started but not completed. And you can look at each learning module and get a sense of where they're at. And also, you can start to look at, okay, this student's got a D plus. Is that because they haven't really interacted with some items in the course that would have perhaps given them a firmer understanding? You've also got notes in here. This is just for instructors. So anyone with instructor rights will have access to this notes area and can store metadata that they want to keep on record that can be used by other instructors, other graders potentially, who have the instructor permission, that is. Um, and these are not shown to the student. This is just private notes for instructors. You've also got an activity log, which might be useful in an invigilation situation or some other use case where you need time and sort of um, step-by-step level data to understand student access of the overall course. You can download this data just like you can download data in the Gradebook, um, and and so it's useful for some of those time-sensitive use cases where you're really trying to understand where is the student right now, what they're doing, or even historically. This will help you get a sense of whether they were on campus. You can see things like IP address and that kind of thing as well. So lots of data within the gradebook to be able to monitor students yourself. But what if you want Blackboard to do some of the monitoring for you, rather than you having to dig this all out yourself? If we go back to the gradebook and we click on settings again, let me show you one other feature that is useful to help you monitor students. Under student performance, we've got settings which are reminiscent of the retention center in Blackboard Original. What this will do is if the overall grade is below or equal a percentage that you set, or the number of missed due dates is above or equal a number that you set, or the days since last access is above or equal a number that you set. Um, the, uh, the system can actually use these thresholds to identify students that might be at risk, and it will use these thresholds to surface this information to you in the activity stream. So not here in the course, but back in the activity stream. We go to Ultra Test, which is my Blackboard environment, and we go back out to base nav. We go to activity stream. This is where I'm going to see those students who might be at risk. They might not be at risk, but using the thresholds I've set in my course, I can use that to automatically highlight to me some students that might be at risk based on the thresholds that I've set. So um, those are very, very useful. You can also, if you want, send little nudges. They're not sort of major panic, red notification on the screen. Just little nudges on the activity stream. You can send those as well to students, just to encourage them to access the material, or reach out to an instructor. If you don't want that, you can turn it off. If that is an untried and untested use case at Mount Massachusetts, then you can turn it off. But if you want Blackboard to do those little nudges for you on the activity stream for students, then you can turn that on inside the gradebook settings. So two sides of the same coin. One is I can access data on my students in order to understand how they're performing, right down to the step-by-step activity level. I don't many many faculty will really be using that, but it might be useful for some edge cases. And the other side of the coin is having Blackboard actually nudge me and identify for me, not just in this course, but across all my courses via the activity stream about students who might be at risk based on the individual thresholds that you set within the settings here in the gradebook. Okay, that's monitoring students using student performance settings in the gradebook. One other thing about the overall grade before we leave that, and that is that in Ultra you can have the overall grade or indeed your total grades. You can have them um, uh, updated based on either a running total or not. So, for example, if you are 2 weeks into your course and some items that students were supposed to submit on, they haven't, and you're not actually calculating a running total, sometimes your actual grade as a student can inaccurately reflect the fact that you've missed some items, and therefore your grade will be lower because you're late on those submissions. So if you go back into the overall grade and take a look at uh, the configuration I'm referring to, um, over here on the right hand side, you can see the overall grade settings, and you can see that we have calculate grades based on points earned out of total graded points. So depending on whether I want a running total or not, will depend on whether I want this on or not. And if I just come out to the settings for a moment and show you the automatic zeros, this is germane to the conversation around running totals or not. In Ultra, you can assign automatic zeros for past work. And so if you have running totals turned on, then any item in the gradebook that is past due will have a zero in it if it has this automatic zeros turned on for past due work. So those two things work hand in hand. And depending on what you want the student experience to be, how you want them to be, how frequently, in essence, you want them to be updated about the progress of their grades throughout the length of the course, versus getting to the end of the course and getting a surprise because um, all of a sudden past due work has got a grade in it that is lower perhaps than they were expecting. If you, depending on what you want the student experience to be between those two things, um, you now have the ability you have the sort of pedagogical flexibility essentially to change that experience based on A, automatic zeros, and B, the running total. It's the automatic zeros in Ultra that's new. You could always do a running total in original, but you weren't playing with this concept of assign automatic zeros to past due work. And so, depending on what experience you want your students to have, depending on what expectations you set with your students around the total columns and the overall grade represents, that will depend on A, whether you leave this on or off, and B, how you configure the running total setting within the individual calculated columns. Okay. Generally speaking, what we are seeing is that institutions are adopting uh, the automatic zeros, but not entirely. Some institutions they have an established norm with their students that irrespective of what their grade currently might be, they know that if they've got late work, that will ultimately catch up with them later on in the course. So it's entirely up to you. You've got the flexibility. You're not forced one way or the other. It's just we've added a new capability, And if you want to take advantage of that, you can. If you don't have to. Okay.
We had a message from Elmer in the chat.
Yes. So you can, yeah, you can do that, Alma. Yeah. Let me show you an example here. Um, so this is an assignment here. And um, inside of the student activity area, you've got this new visualization, which will show you students that are at risk. When you have students, I'm surprised I can't see my student. This is a group assignment, so it might be different. Yeah, it's a group assignment. So you can, let me see, let's go into this group here. That's the, um, so it might not be possible from this assignment because it's a group assignment, and so you would message them via the group tool. Um, but it's a good question. Let me just see if I can find that for you. Let me find a different assignment.
Maybe that quiz.
Maybe the quiz, yes. So here we go. Um, you can this is a harmony assignment where they have to take a melody and add counterpoint. And in the submissions pane, you can tap all the students you want to send a message to, and then you click send message to bring up the message envelope for those selected students. Let's see if you can do it in the quiz as well.
Okay, so it's not like hit the assignment and just send a general message to everybody who missed that assignment. You have to go into this view to actually do it one by one.
You can do it from the assignment if you like. So if you it's in Ultra
'Cause
the
in
two
the
things
old
are
version, you
together.
could just click the assignment and say send a message to everyone who missed it, and I don't have to go through looking at who missed it.
Yeah, you can do that. So let's go to the module two, module one, I think it was. So this is the assignment here. You tap the assignment. Okay. Now you can't do it from here, but it's
Right.
just a few clicks away. You click submissions, you tap this button here, and then you send a message, and that will send a message to all the students, irrespective of whether they've completed it or not.
Yeah, that was the problem I had. I sent it, I did that, and I sent it to all the students, and I had like 20 students email me back like, I already did this assignment. What are you talking about? They're all angry at
Okay.
me. So that's what I was trying to do, like just to the ones who missed the assignment, not the ones who not to everybody.
Okay. So then you'd need to select,
So you can select that down spot,
yeah, no submission, and then send a
and then
message.
click the students. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. No, great question.
So when you're looking at the grades tab, I don't know if you can go back there. There's one little feature that I found was really awesome. If you go to the like hit the grades and then see where
Yeah.
it says overview, if you hit the overview tab, it shows all the assignments that are needing to be graded, and you can grade them right there. And then
Yes.
hit the button to submit them all, which was a really cool thing I hadn't found before. So I was like, what? I could do that instead of going through like what are the grades that are still missing. It puts them in there. It gives you a quick overview of all the items that students have submitted, and you can grade
Yep.
them right there. So just a
No.
little feature that I found interesting.
Yeah. No, absolutely. This is kind of the new needs grading screen. So if you've ever used that in original, this is the new version of that. Yeah. Yeah. And in Ultra, there are two stages in the grading process. In original, you could kind of do this. You had to select a setting against the column to say you didn't want the grades to be posted. So it was kind of an opt in as opposed to a kind of a default. In
Mm.
Ultra, anything that's submitted by students and then graded by instructors will not automatically go to students until it's posted. But it's um,
I'm not too crazy about that feature.
yeah, but it's as you say,
You have to go
it's
clicking 20 million clicks to release
well, no,
each grade.
well,
So,
no, because you can do it. So you can do it on an individual basis, but you can do it on an item basis as well. So if you've graded 50 students out of 100, you can just
yeah,
post.
when you use this view, you can see the needs posting. You just hit the post, and then. But when you're in the grade view,
Right.
and then it just like you're individually clicking post, post, post. So
Yeah.
there's, and then it prompts you again. So it's like three different prompts. It's a pain in the neck, but yeah, this view is a little bit better.
Yeah, I
To
think
hit the to post them all.
yeah. All my items here are posted, so I don't know whether I can do this.
Hmm.
Like you say, you've got this post option here. Can you not do it from the column header?
You can do it from the setting there, but it gives you another prompt to like if you're really wanting to post it. So then you have to
Okay.
hit like you have to click like three different times to post it to post the grade. When you're in that other overview view,
Yeah.
you can see all like by like say all the quizzes that need to be posted. You just hit post once and then it posts it. So it's a little bit it's a quicker setting than if you go through if you're just doing a grade. Like say I'm
Yeah.
just grading one item
Yeah.
and I'm in that view, grading the students. And then it puts it in the to be posted tab, and then
Yeah.
if you want to click on it, you have to click it and then click it again when it posts. It asks you if you really want to post it. So I like the overview one because you can just go there, like just like grade all everything first, then go back to the overview tab and just hit post, and it'll be gone all at once. So
Yeah.
rather than just like clicking every single one, it just like was a
Yeah.
really roundabout way.
Yeah, no, that's right. And I guess the reason for sometimes putting in those extra bits of friction is to stop inadvertent steps being completed. But yeah, depending on your sometimes it's about digital literacy and making sure that people can't do things more easily than they ought to. But then if you're very comfortable with what you're doing, it it can feel a little bit cumbersome. So the,
I had a
you're
quick
absolutely
other
right.
question. Sorry. When I have one assignment that people do out externally and they just post that they completed it. Is there a way for that to be just auto graded, like it just selected like on their own? Because I take time to go through them. Like they're just it's an assignment. So it's just like you did it or you didn't do it, basically. And so you just click a button, say I completed this assignment, and then have them get graded for it. I don't know if that's am I making sense, but
Yeah, you're making sense. Let me have a look at the assignment options. Let's create a brand new assignment just to take a look at that. Um,
You could do a text entry for submission details. If you did a
yeah.
text entry, they could say complete. I don't know. I should keep my mouth shut. I don't know anything.
No,
hard
no, I'm
to I
just
don't know.
so yeah.
Because it's for example, I have an external game that they're playing. So if they completed that round for the week, they get credit for it. And I have to go in and put a grade in, and I just rather just have it clicked that they click it and tell me that they completed it. I can
Okay, so
verify
yeah.
later, but then they
So
just get the grade. I have to put the points in, which is a pain.
no, no, no. Okay,
And
so what we can do is we can do this. Um, I'll you can do it as an assignment, but I'll do it as a test. So
Mhm.
game or game level complete. So all I'm going to do in here is I'm going to put a question. This is next week's topic, by the way. So
Oh, I'm jumping ahead.
I'm giving you bonus stuff. So what we'll do in here is we'll put a true false question because it has to be an auto graded question type.
Hmm.
Um, and we'll say I confirm that I have read, chapter chapter 2 of the textbook or whatever it might be. The
And just
answer,
like yes or no, yeah.
yeah, the answer is yes or no or true and false. You can choose whichever options you want. You then put in the point value that you want this to be contributing towards the overall grade, or at
Hmm.
least into the grade book if you don't want it as part of the overall grade. And then we'll tap save. So that essentially acts as a challenge question. It's a challenge. It's like
So make it more like
learn.
a quiz type thing. They answer it and then it automatically grades it
Yep, that's right.
instead of me having to post it every time.
That's the way I do that. Is
Okay.
use a quiz as a challenge question. Yeah.
Yeah, because in Canvas I can do that. I can set an assignment, and if the student completed, I can just click complete, complete, complete. I just hit, the student's assignment and just hit complete. And here I can't do complete and then grade it. I have to go in, put a grade, set it up, and it's like three different steps. And I haven't found a similar thing to
You
do it where
can,
I can do it.
yeah, you can do complete and incomplete. So, I mean, what I've just done is even easier
Yeah,
than
that's easier because they can do it. They can
yeah,
tell me if they did it, right?
yeah. If we choose complete, incomplete, and say maximum points is, whatever, 10. Um, then in this modality, it requires instructor intervention, i.e., marking it complete or incomplete. Um, so you have that grading method. Um, so you've basically got both options. This
Okay,
one,
that's the one I was looking for, like the complete, incomplete. So I can just
yeah,
go through, see who, just click on the person's name. I go through the list and like, five of them didn't complete it, three did, and I just click complete and they get the grade. And if they
correct,
didn't complete it, I put incomplete and then they get 0.
correct,
Okay.
yeah. But the challenge might be an even um, so long as you set an ethic around that
Hmm.
the challenge might be even easier. Well, it is easier. It's just a question of whether there are some gotchas, some downsides, disbenefits. But I know a number of use cases where that has been used.
Thank you.
I've got some red pen on my screen. Can you see that?
Yep, I
Yes,
can see it.
I
I
don't
have
know
no
why it's there.
I have no idea where that's come from. This tool is not. I don't know where maybe it's Zoom. Maybe it's a Zoom thing. Ah, yeah. Okay. Somebody
I
told.
just did it and it did it on yours. Yeah. That's weird.
Elmo's
Okay.
got power.
I didn't know I had that power.
I didn't either.
Markup,
Great. Okay. So before we wrap up today, what I want to talk a little bit about is one unspoken feature of the Gradebook, which is rubrics. Um, One of the other things you want to do when you get access to your course from Original is make sure that the rubrics are come across, make sure all of the weighting and the criteria is correct. Um, and that's all available within the settings area. Now, you can obviously access rubrics from within assignments. If I was to go to content and I was to scroll down to I think it's this one. Yeah, this one. This one uses a rubric inside of the assignment. If we go to the settings, we can scroll down, and one of the additional tools is the grading rubric. So from here, I can check my rubrics. Just going to plug in my battery. Just bear with me 1 second. Just bear with me 1 second.
so go back a sec when you pick that up, because I was trying to do that rubric grading and it actually sets it up, but just wanted to see where you pulled that out.
Yeah, I'll go back one step. So There's two ways into the grading capability. One is via the assignment itself. So in the assignment, we tap settings, we scroll down to additional tools, and then underneath the additional tools, the rubric that um, was in the previous assignment will have come across. You can tap that and it brings up the rubric for you to make adjustments.
Oh, okay, so that's where I can change the percentages for each category that I use.
Correct.
And then yeah, because when you're grading it, you can actually select the each of the categories when you're in the grade view, and you can
Yes.
click okay, they only completed on this category, they only did 10% of it or whatever, and it adds it up by itself and gives them a total.
Yeah. That's great. I'm glad that you've been playing with that, Alma. Um, yeah, it makes it super easy and super uh, from an academic point of view that there's a lot of benefits to that new flexible grading interface. The other way to get access to these rubrics is from within the gradebook, which is why I have included it in today's topic. If we go to the gradebook and we go back to settings and we go all the way to the bottom of this little peak pane, we have almost all the way bottom, we have our course rubrics. So within any given assignment, you're only ever looking at one of the rubrics because you can only assign one rubric to one assignment. Um, but in the gradebook, we can see the rubrics that are drawn from across the course, and we can even create new rubrics from in here. To do that, you simply click the create button, and then you've got the full interface here to start manually building your rubrics. The first thing you'll want to do, though, is make sure that the existing rubrics that have come across from the previous course are in good shape. So you can tap on the title of the rubric, and that brings it up. And then if you hover over the rubric interface, just like elsewhere in Ultra, there are there's icons that aren't shown from the get-go because otherwise it clutters the user experience. But as you hover over, you'll get context-sensitive icons to help you make adjustments. So, for example, if you're in the composition space, you can tap the edit icon, and that allows you to get your cursor in there and make adjustments if the percentage weighting is wrong for any given criteria. Same within a level area, you can change the titles of the level. I don't anticipate you having any problems with this, but this is how you make adjustments to rubrics that have come across. If
In mine, it gave me like a null when you're on the grading side. It would say null instead of saying the title of the section of the rubric, which is kind of
Mhm.
weird.
Yeah, that is odd. I have not seen that before. Um, Maybe some odd characters. I'm not sure. Shouldn't be because the rubric was pretty vanilla in original. But
Yeah, I'm gonna go back and see if I can do this what you just did to see if I can edit the titles there, and maybe when it imported it wrong.
mhm,
Could be what it was.
yeah. Um, And then again, in a similar fashion to the gradebook, if you need to add in columns or criteria, you do that just as we have before. You hover your mouse over the intervening area between the criteria that you want to create it and the one below, and you tap Add New Criterion, the little plus symbol, and it will give you the ability to add in that new criteria. Same for the different levels of competence. If you hover your mouse between the different columns, you get the little plus symbol, tap that, and you can add a new column in. So not a lot of this becomes sort of muscle memory when you remember how Ultra works in other places, um, that you'll develop a level of intuition about where to find things, such as adding in new items. The other thing that Ultra can do, if you feel like your rubrics could do with a bit of a revamp, is it can generate rubrics for you. And the way it does this is it draws from the contents of your course. It draws from um, the contents of actual documents that you've created, but also assignments and tests. Um, and it allows you to create rubrics based off of that context. You can further refine the context by adding in a description. And behind this is the AI design assistant. And so when you're working with any of these tools, you need to go into your prompting mode, and you can add, prompting in here to refine the suggestions that it's making. This is only really inspiration. If you don't like it, you can just ignore it. Or you can continue with it, but make the adjustments post generation that you feel like you need to make. Um, in any case, you can always specify the number of columns, the rows that you want, and also language. Language is always one of the options you get in the AI design assistant. You can also choose complexity, um, and this is generally going to just basically involve more words, a more robust description, a more explicit description, um, and if you think about Bloom's taxonomy and those different orders of thinking, that is also part of what's behind this in terms of complexity, so that you are really pushing students to higher levels of thinking as you go up the rubric. So that is there if you want to play with it, but really for our purposes, the main thing is that you check existing rubrics. Obviously, Alma had one that came through with some erroneous text in it. That needs to be adjusted as part of your overall QA on receipt of your course. Okay. Um, so with the exception of the extra credit use cases, which I need to look into, um, and Alma, it might be useful at this stage, either if you share your course ID, and I'll take a look at it for you next week. It's getting late in my evening on this side of the pond, so it's probably something that I would look at next week for you. But if you'd like to share your desktop now, so we can at least just have a visual on what you're talking
Uh,
about.
I don't have I'm on my phone. So,
Okay.
yeah.
So if you don't mind sharing the course ID with me, I'll put my email address in chat. And if anyone's got any other questions that you think about over the weekend, I hope you don't think about them
Okay.
over the weekend. I hope you're hope you're resting. But yeah, if anyone has got any other follow-up questions, I'd be happy to address those. And if you send me the course ID, Alma, I can take a look in your environment and try and do some troubleshooting to work out what's going on there. But you've got my email address. You can pick that up afterwards. Um, Let me just see if there's anything else that we haven't covered.
All right. Thank you. I got your email.
You got me? Yeah, great, good. Um, and Leanne, I think this will help answer the questions you had as well. Um, and Israt, there's a number of questions around that. So I will definitely follow up with Anne next week with some guidance on that. I can potentially do a quick video recording and send it over to you as well, depending on how complex the exercise is. But yeah, without seeing it, I think it's probably going to be difficult to actually troubleshoot it. So it's probably best if we review that over the course of next week and then come back to you. Does anyone else have any questions?
I was going to say, if you did end up sending a recording, I can post it in our faculty resources. We
Hmm.
have a Blackboard Ultra course. I can inform the participants from this
Okay.
session about that. So,
Excellent. Yep,
yeah.
that sounds like a great plan. Let me do that. I'll send that by the middle of next week, so there's some extra clarity on that. And those of you watching the recording, you know where to find that now that Anne's mentioned it. I think that gets us to a nice sort of um, point to pause. There's a lot more to discuss here in terms of assignments and tests and discussions. There's some um, a lot more in terms of best practices and general design advice that we would want to cover as part of those other tools in Blackboard. Um, and Sarah will pick that up next week in next week's session. And in terms of those of you that are in receipt of your courses, one of the things you're going to see with assignments, tests, discussions, essentially any gradable item in Ultra, is that instead of the gradebook being this tool that's just a tool, and whenever you want to do grading, you have to go to the gradebook. Um, Ultra actually, like I've said at the beginning, it puts things where they need to be when you need them to be there. So just as we wrap up, just for me to just illustrate what I'm talking about, if we are inside of the module one harmony assignment, when we access it from the content page, it shows us the content and allows us to edit the content and edit the settings. When we access it from the gradebook, it shows us the submissions page and allows us uh, to take action on things that need grading or things that need posting or send students messages or whatever it might be. But it's basically the same tool. This is the gradebook. It's just that in the content view, you have this contents page, and in the gradebook, it looks more like this. So the gradebook is not just a tool anymore, it's a capability that's woven through the fabric of your course. And when you need it, it's there. You don't have to come out of here, go to the gradebook, find the assignment. Um, uh, and that will take some unlearning for you to do because you'll be inclined, even if you're in here, even if you're for sake of time, even if you're in here, if you think, right, I want to grade this now, you'll be inclined to close the assignment, go to the gradebook, open, and you can do that if that's what you prefer to do. But don't miss out on a few fewer clicks when you're in an assignment and you're looking at it and you want to see the gradebook. You can get to it right there. It's just a click away. This is the gradebook with maybe I don't know a few tiny things missing, and you can't obviously jump from this assignment into another assignment. That's the beauty of the gradebook; it brings it all together. But when you're in the content area, just know that you can access submissions for any given assignment or test or quiz or discussion, the details of which Sarah will go into next week. You can access them right there within that individual item. So there's probably some unlearning there to do just to make sure you're getting the best of some of these new workflows that we built into Ultra. Great. Let's go back to my deck here. So we've looked at the gradebook starting right at the beginning in terms of, okay, I've got my course. Is it organized correctly? Is it configured correctly? Have the categories come across? Do I want to make use of the overall grade? If I do, is that configured correctly? What about my weighted columns? Have they come across in the right shape? Is there any problems with the weighting? And I'll come back to you a little bit next week on the extra credit use cases. And then how do I monitor and retain students? How do I get some visibility on how students are interacting with different content in the course and how they're performing on the course? And to Alma's question, how can I message students quickly when I see some lack of engagement? And then finally, we looked at rubrics, how you can review existing rubrics that have come across, make any adjustments that might need to be made. Pardon me. And also using the AI design assistant as well for inspiration in that rubric creation process, getting some inspiration maybe to make your rubrics more robust and more effective, both from a student perspective, so they can see what's expected of them more clearly, but also from a grading perspective, to Alma's point, to be able to quickly go through the grading process and making use of the criteria that you specified. Thank you for your time today. I hope this has been a useful session just to get you into the gradebook. And I'm presuming that most of you will either have access to your original courses that have been converted or will shortly get access to them. Either way, you can always revert back to this recording as part of that orientation exercise. And yeah, by all means, attend next week if you're interested in learning a little bit more about discussions, assignments, and tests. Sarah will cover that for you next week.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much, Lloyd. We appreciate it.
Thank you for all being here. This is a great turnout, so I'm really, really pleased.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for a
we had
Friday
a good number.
afternoon and it's sunny out. So yeah.
Yeah. All right, we'll go and enjoy the sun. Have a great weekend when it comes. Thanks, everyone. Bye for
Thank
now.
you.
Thank you.